everyone, in this video we are going to discuss the Paris Climate Agreement. So the Paris Climate Agreement was originally signed on December 12th, 2015. And so what happened is there was this really big conference, and it was called the 21st Conference. So it's something that happens annually, but this one specifically was the 21st Conference of the parties. And so when we say parties, we're talking about large groups of people that kind of work together. So we would refer to ourselves as the Party of the United States, so it's a country essentially, but it's just a little bit more loose with that definition. So the 21st Conference of the Parties of the UNFCCC, so the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and this happened in Paris, hence the name. So the Paris Climate Agreement happened in Paris. Now, this happened again in 2015, and 196 parties came together and agreed upon 3 pillars of the Paris Climate Agreement, which was unbelievable. It was so cool that they were able to do this. So the first pillar that they agreed on, and this is the longest one, do not let the global average temperature increase, right, because that's really what we care about, is the increase of the temperature, increase by 2 degrees Celsius. Okay, so the goal was to keep the change in temperature to stay below 2 degrees Celsius. But try to keep it under 1.5 degrees Celsius. So as a group, 196 parties came together and they said, okay, as a globe, we want to make sure our change in temperature stays below 2 degrees Celsius, but we are going to do everything we can humanly possibly do to make sure that we keep that even below 1.5 degrees Celsius. So that's really the ideal goal. Number 2, the second pillar, learn how to adapt. So it's saying be proactive. We have something coming toward us here in the next couple 10, 20 years that's going to be difficult for us to handle. And so how are we going to do this? Well, the first thing we need to do is be proactive and think about the bad weather that's coming at us. So if we have flooding or hurricanes or tornadoes or wildfires, how are we going to handle this? So be proactive, think about what we would do and how we're going to help our citizens of our countries when this inevitably happens. And the second part, which is the more important part, is think about it from an energy standpoint. We can no longer rely on fossil fuels. We need to think of an alternative energy source. And so in this second pillar, we're saying, think about how to protect our citizens when they inevitably deal with bad weather issues, but then how do we move forward? Instead of just relying on fossil fuels, we need to use wind or solar or something else to try to generate our energy. So that was the second pillar. And then the third pillar was the one I refer to as the Be a Good Neighbor pillar. And the reason I say this is because the third pillar basically says if you're a developed nation, help third world countries, helped underdeveloped nations. So if you have the resources and the scientists and the money and everything that goes into that aspect to actually do this research and figure out how to come up with ways to adapt for weather and new energy sources, share that information. Please, please share that information. So they're saying if you've come up with a better method, go help another country that's really struggling to just get water out of the ground or maybe even just have electricity in general. So share this information and try to do the best we can to make as a team, as our planet, all together to one good place. So now the reason I'm really talking about this is because on June 1st, okay, so June 1st of 2017, we had something kind of interesting happen. So President Trump basically withdrew the United States from the agreement. Okay, so I'm just going to call it the Paris Climate Agreement, the PCA, okay? So on June 1st, 2017, President Trump withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement. And to be perfectly honest, this was received kind of differently. So there were over 360 United States mayors who were extremely upset by this, and they decided to band together and do something. But there was also another chunk of our citizens here in the United States that thought this was a good thing. A lot of times that has has to do when people have ties into the fossil fuel industry. So if you have parents that work with coal or natural gas or anything, it's very difficult to think about closing down those industries, which I completely understand. And so what we're trying to do now is figure out a way for the United States to move forward. And so one of the ways that that happened is these mayors that I said, these 360 mayors, actually came together and developed a hashtag called Climate Mayors. And it was more than that, obviously, but this is the hashtag that started. And so if you were actually to visit climatemayors.org, you can actually see this really beautiful map of over 360 United States mayors who have said, for our specific city, we are going to do whatever we can to keep up with the Paris Climate Agreement. So we as a community, so one of the Austin mayors did this, or the Austin mayor did this. So he said all of our Austin citizens are actually going to agree to every single one of these 3 pillars. And so as an Austin citizen, I was incredibly proud of that, but I also am a scientist, and I really truly believe in what the Climate Paris Agreement tries to say. So what I want you to do right now is just go over to climatemayors.org and look at that big map that has all the different stars on there and identifies all the different mayors that have agreed to uphold the Paris Climate Agreement. And what I want you to do is very quickly look and see if any mayors in Oklahoma signed. So that's my parting question today. So did any mayors in Oklahoma sign the agreement, basically saying that they want to make sure to uphold the 3 pillars of the Paris Climate Agreement? All right, let's see. Did you get an answer? Hopefully you did, but if you didn't, that's okay. What I wanted you to do was go to climatemayors.org and go all the way to the very, very bottom of the website. And so what you're seeing here is I'm shooting this video in July 2017, so it's totally possible that the information has changed since then. But basically what I have here is the map of all the United States mayors that have agreed to uphold the Paris Climate Agreement. And if you hover over Oklahoma, what you see is the closest one right here is a mayor that's agreed to it, but actually this mayor is in Arkansas. Okay, so they're from Fayette, Arkansas. So not one United States mayor from Oklahoma agreed to sign the Paris Climate Agreement. Interesting, huh? Have a great week. Take care of yourself. Drink water.